Welcome back, everyone, to the second half of our Day 3 Flex Reverse Site Visit. And today's session that we will have up next year is Rural Health Leadership Resources. And you'll learn about 2 resources for leaders today. The recently released 6-part Surviving and Thriving as a New Leader video series. And this was created especially to help critical access hospital leaders achieve success in their role. And also we have the soon to be released Flex Staff Sustainability Guide full of best practices and tools to support employee engagement, retention, succession planning, and sustainability of Flex program staff. And before I introduce the speakers, just a reminder, if the session is being recorded and the recording and slides are available in the event site right underneath the bios, and the recording's available about 30 minutes after the session. If you're having technical difficulties, please utilize the chat feature and we can assist you. You can also raise your hand. And we have a moderator who will be watching that. Also, if you have any questions, we encourage you to put those in the chat box. And also at the time, we will have some time for question and answer, and we'll invite folks to unmute themselves at that time. And this also, we have closed captioning as well. So I'm going to introduce our speakers. We have Shannon Studden, and she is a principal consultant at Shannon Studden Consulting. And this is a firm specializing in leadership and work team development. And before starting her own firm, Shannon provided support to rural health leaders as part of our team at the Rural Health Resource Center. And in her previous role, she managed the talent management leadership development function for a global mining company, and also has served on faculty at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. Shannon specializes in the area of leadership, organizational development, employee engagement, the emotional side of change, coaching, and conflict management. And also joining her in the session today is Terry Hill, who's the Executive Director of Rural Health Innovations and Senior Advisor for Rural Health Leadership and Policy for the National Rural Health Resource Center. And Terry brings over 30 years of experience in rural healthcare, working with leaders in all states with rural hospitals, and has facilitated a number of summit meetings and national projects, including the Technical Assistance Service Center for Flex. And I will turn it over to Shannon and Terry.
Thanks, Sally. And Terry and I guess I will speak for both of us, we're really excited to be here with all of you today to share 2 resources we think are have a lot of value. So to talk to you about them today. So,
Shannon
the 2, as Sally
refers to the 2 of us as the leadership nerds. I'm sorry, I love that label, so I just wanted to. That's the other part of our credential. So we love this stuff. Go ahead.
Yes, we do. So as Sally mentioned, the 2 resources we're here to talk to you about just a little bit are a video series called Surviving and Thriving as a New Leader, targeting new leaders in rural hospitals and clinics, and a resource guide for Flex leaders and Flex staff, really intended to support retention and engagement of Flex staff in order to address some of the challenges related to turnover that have been experienced in the Flex program and in many different organizations across the country. So we'll go through these just one at a time and give you a little bit more detail. So we'll start with the video series. Terry, can you just share a little bit about where the impetus for this came from and why we decided to put this together?
Sure. I'm obviously everybody's aware that our center basically contains the task and ship programs as a part of a cooperative agreement. But we have two other major programs. One is called the Delta Region Community Health Systems Program. And that's a really intense work with rural hospitals, kind of on the ground with their communities, et cetera, in an 8-state Mississippi Delta region. And then we also, for the last 20 years or so, have had some version of our small rural hospital transition program. So in that regard, every year we work literally with dozens of rural hospitals on various aspects of performance. But leadership is always one of the things that we really try to target. And one of the things that we know in terms of leadership is there's been dramatic turnover, specifically in the last couple of years. But historically, we've seen our hospital administrators turn over, for example, and once every 3 years or so. So we're consistently putting new leadership in. We find that, maybe the director of nursing has left and now we have to put a brand new person in, et cetera. So the target audience that we thought about and the feedback that we've been giving is that develop some tools or resources for new leaders, whether they're the hospital administrator or a department manager, et cetera. So we put as a target kind of 2 years of experience or less in leadership. And these resources that we're going to unveil here can be used by any rural hospital. It can be used by our rural EMS system, for Gary Wingrove's benefit here, for rural clinics, et cetera. These are relatively generic, but they're targeted primarily at hospital in that regard. And again, they're directed more towards leaders that might be transitioning into this role and may require some support in the initial years. So I'll turn it back to you, Shannon, to talk about the purpose.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, we know how difficult that transition can be. So, going from being a technical expert like a nurse or a lab tech or an x-ray tech, and then suddenly you're in a leadership role. Those are really vastly different roles, and the learning curve can be really steep. And so our goal with all of our leadership resources, but this one in particular, was to kind of flatten that learning curve a little bit and make that transition a little bit smoother. So that's what the purpose of this is just to give new leaders and people who are looking at maybe a leadership role in the near future to help them transition, and really to help build their confidence and help them kind of hit the ground running in their efforts to build a cohesive, engaged team. So just some of the details about what the series looks like. So we've got 6 video modules that are, I think every one of them is just a little bit under a half hour long. And those video modules are made up of instructional content, so sort of just delivering some information and sharing knowledge, interspersed with interviews with rural health leaders. And the next slide, we've got the different people on it, but we have a really fantastic group of rural health leaders who have generously volunteered to share their expertise and their experiences and tell some stories about how some of this stuff has played out in their professional lives. We also then supplement it with discussion questions. So some staff at hospitals choose to take this in a group. Leaders will go through the series at the same time, and then discussion questions for them to get together and talk about after they go through each module, so that they can kind of think about how these concepts apply to them in their daily work life and which pieces of them really resonate with them. But also some of these can be used as reflection questions if somebody is just going through the series on their own in their facility. Then each module also has some suggested activities. So ways for people to really dig into and explore how some of the topics covered in the program, what it looks like at their hospital, at their clinic, like strategic planning or change initiatives and that kind of thing, for them to really dig into that. And then as the center almost always does with a lot of its resources, we've provided some additional tools and resources just for supplemental information for people who are interested or really want learn in more detail about any of the topics covered.
And over the years, we've discovered that half
Go
an
ahead,
hour.
Terry, sorry.
No, that's okay. Half an hour is about the length of time that somebody may have for lunch, for example, or when they get home, etc.
Yeah, we've tried to make it as easy as possible to kind of fit into the busy lives of the audience. And so, you know, that was the intention, is to make these digestible and like Terry said, fit into lunchtime or quick breaks. You can just get little bites at a time. So these are the interviewees that we have. We have people we have the states of Texas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, California, and Alabama represented. We've got administrators, mid-level leaders, providers, Peggy Broussard-Wheeler from the California Hospital Association. So we've got, and Joanne Preston from the Rural Wisconsin Health Cooperative, who is a great partner for the center. She's got a vast amount of expertise in leadership development. So it's great to have all these different perspectives represented in the series. And here are the topics covered. So these topics come out of healthcare leadership competencies, really two sets of leadership competencies specific to healthcare from the Center for Healthcare Leadership and the Center for Creative Leadership. So both of those organizations are really reputable, credible organizations who have a lot of evidence kind of underlying their leadership competencies. So they really know what the knowledge and skills of the most successful healthcare leaders are. So that's where we pull those from. And then Terry and I, like Terry said, we are the leadership nerds. And so we have a lot of conversations with hospital and clinic leaders. And so kind of with the stories and the information they give us, the two of us work together to kind of tease out probably the most relevant topics to cover from those leadership competencies in this particular series. So we start with sort of an overview of the role of a leader, and then go in the next module, think a little bit more broadly about the organization. What's the strategy? What's the culture of the organization? And then get more into managing your team. So how do you manage performance? How do you manage conflict and difficult conversations and communicate in a collaborative way? You effectively, which as we all know is part of everybody's lives, but probably healthcare almost more than anybody else. And then how do you really as a leader, keep your team engaged? Terry, do you have anything to add to this?
Oh, that's pretty well said. Thanks.
The video series and all of the supplemental resources and tools can be found on the center's website. If you search in the search field on the website on leadership fundamentals. So all of the stuff is in here and can be accessed by anybody at any time. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Matt to share a little teaser video that the center put together and get a little sense of what's in here.
It's not easy to be a new leader, especially for those who are part of a team that they are now managing. Expectations, priorities, and responsibilities are completely different, and new leaders often feel alone in their struggles. This 6-part video series is designed to help new rural health leaders navigate the ups and downs of transitioning to a supervisor or manager role. Participants will gain knowledge and skills to help them feel confident in their role and build a cohesive team that delivers results. Each module includes a 30-minute educational video,
unfortunately, your
including
video is
clips
not
of
showing up.
Well, then y'all just have to listen to it. Hold on one second, y'all. Let me fix this. How about now?
Still no video. Is it on a different screen?
It is, but What about now?
No,
Interviews with
unfortunately.
rural health leaders and
Hold on.
We may just have to make it a homework assignment that everyone can go to the
It worked.
center's website and check
Hold on
it
one
out.
second. Let me try again.
Okay.
Let's see here. Anything now?
No.
Wow. That is strange. We definitely tested this out, guys. I'm sorry about that. Let's see here.
It says you're sharing your screen, but we don't see the video.
That's interesting. Hold on one
I
second.
can give it a try here.
health leadership, discussion, and
I can give it a try.
Okay, John.
We see your email. That looks like it.
Good.
There's no sound for it. Sally, when you shared it, did you click the share sound as well? I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, well, why don't we'll go back to the slides. And Caroline has put the link in the chat box.
Thanks.
We apologize after all the practice.
Gotta love technology. Yeah, so that's your homework assignment, everybody. Go to the center's website and check that out. Check out that thing. All right, I'm gonna share again. Here we go. Am I sharing the right screen? That's the big question.
Yep, it's not in presentation mode.
Oh, so I'm not sharing the right screen. Thank goodness. All right, let's try this one more time. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. So the anticipation, I'm sure, is killing you to see that teaser. But just a reminder, some of you may already be aware of this, some of you may not, but the center has put out leadership video series in the past 3 years. So this is the third year. So last year, the center put out a leadership series specifically for mid-level leaders. So, kind of managers and directors in rural hospitals and clinics, focused really around navigating the shift to value-based payment and population health, but building in a lot of leadership, just kind of more general leadership topics like leading change. And so some of the topics in this new manager program are included in this mid-level leader program as well. So that is on the center's website, as well as the series that was put out in 2020 targeting boards. So a board leadership video series, again, six about half-hour modules. Actually, they're even a little bit shorter. We were trying to be able to fit those into board meetings. Really focused, really educating board members on the transition to value, as well as succession planning for CEOs and leadership topics that are really specific to board members. So check those out if those strike you as something of interest.
And what I would say is that these resources are going to be really valuable for the rural hospitals. I teach a class where I have an MBA class where I have a lot of rural hospital leaders, and they tell me they're not really familiar with a lot of the resources we might have on the center. So we would greatly appreciate if you guys could get links into all of these resources out to your hospitals. I would think that in an era of COVID and everything else that's going right now, workforce comes to the top of their list. And I think that, leaders help in the retention of employees. They are one of the reasons that people stay. And so great leadership and great management is going to contribute significantly to this whole issue of workforce. So then I'll just get into this new resources that we're developing. And this is based upon kind of our experience working with flex programs over the years. What we've discovered and what has been a consistent problem is you folks are great, but we see pretty dramatic turnover in terms of our state flex coordinators. In fact, one piece of data I saw was we get about 50% turnover every 4 years or so. And so in order to kind of address this, we put together this new resource guide, which is really intended to be kind of a holistic look at how we can build in sustainability of our flex staff. We think a lot of the concepts are very much applicable to our hospitals and clinics as well. But this guide is specifically designated for our state flex people and for the people that hire them, the state offices of rural health and other organizations that contribute some way to the longevity of our flex coordinators and our flex staff.
So the purpose of this guide, I think Terry just said it really well. I don't think I can say it any better than that, but the goal is really to share very concrete, very actionable recommendations to help flex programs recruit and retain their staff, which ultimately then promotes the continuity of the really crucial support that's provided to rural hospitals and clinics. So the guide is kind of structured according to this cycle, and we start with recruiting, but really it's kind of a never-ending cycle. There isn't a step 1, step 2, step 3, you're done. It's just a continuous cycle to focus on things like really recruiting effectively. We know that that specific practices during the recruiting process not only lead to recruiting of high quality candidates and high quality employees, but really the actions taken in the recruiting process continue through and can lead to retention and engagement of new hires. So the cycle in the guide starts with recruiting, and then we go into onboarding, best practices for onboarding once someone has accepted a position and is starting their new role. Then learning and development, how can you best develop people and help them learn and grow in their career? How can you keep people engaged in their job, really excited about coming to work and finding a lot of meaning in what they do, and then ultimately staying in their job. And then succession planning. How do you, even before someone's going to leave, how can you set things up in a way to make the transition smooth when it is time for them to go, whether it's getting promoted to another position in the organization or going outside the organization? Here's a little bit more detail into the topics, and I won't go through every one of these in detail, but you can see that there are a lot of areas underneath each one of these elements of the cycle. So it goes as far as to communication and marketing, selecting the right employee. In learning and development, there are a lot of different ways to develop people, not just formal training, but what kinds of experiences really lead to development in a meaningful way. Interactions with others through things like coaching and mentoring, in addition to formal training. And just like with the leadership series, this guide has been designed to be as digestible and practical and relevant as possible. So in each section of the guide, there's a lot of really concrete recommendations, as well as almost like a Cliff's Notes version in that section. So some key takeaways. Here are some things that are either maybe it might be particularly surprising or particularly important from all of the ideas that are included in that section. We also have specific examples of how some state flex programs have done some of these things, some of the things that are recommended, as well as, just like with the leadership series, supplemental tools and resources to support some of the recommendations that come out of the guide. Anything to add, Terry?
Yeah, I was really impressed with the list of resources that you came up with, Shannon, in terms of click here and this will give you more information, or these are tools that you can use. Here's a worksheet that you can use as well. So we hope this kind of, it's not going to solve our problem of flex program turnover, but we're hoping it's going to contribute to the retention of the good people that, we talked yesterday about how complex this job is. And so I know that TASK and I know the federal office as well really wants you folks to be here a year, 2 years down the road. And this is not only designed for you as flex coordinators, but hopefully for your managers and your directors, et cetera. Because this is such an important, we think it's an extremely important job. And it'd be so great if we could increase the longevity of our flex coordinators with this hopefully being of some assistance.
Thank you, Shannon and Terry. Do we have any questions? We have a couple minutes. Questions or comments? As we said, the resource guide will be available on the TASK website in a few weeks for our August TASK 90. And the video series is available now. And again, the resource guide we feel will be very helpful because sometimes when there's turnover that's not planned, there might be an unexpected leave of absence, an emergency situation, or in positions that are within state government, there's generally not an overlap. They don't allow that as they do maybe in a university or a nonprofit. And so there's a gap there of a flex coordinator or director. And so this can help you organize before, if you are planning a departure, a migration to another position, or if you're the one coming in new of some key tools, but it helps with pre-planning. Great, and Janelle shared she watched the first module and thought it was fantastic and helpful resource. And yep, that's how we felt too, that both for hospitals, but even within your own organizations, that you can do it individually or as a small group with your hospital board as a recommendation or leadership team. Some great resources. Wonderful. Well, thank you both for sharing. And thanks everyone for joining this session. We're going to migrate back over to the attendee hub and join that session. You'll see there's a join session live button available now on the event site, choosing Uplifting Leadership with Dennis Wagner for our closing keynote. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you over in the other space.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
Thanks Shannon, thanks Terry.